Hello, welcome pen friends. I wanted to come on today and just have a real chatty, heart-to-heart, kind of face-to-face talk about a subject that I've been thinking about a lot over the past couple of weeks, and that is having a pen buying fast. And I've used quite a few techniques over the past 8 years, almost 8 years, to try to kind of make my pen buying peaceful for myself. I've tried a no buy, a slow buy, a low buy. I've tried a pen allowance, which I actually went the farthest. I felt the best about pen allowance, but we'll talk about that a little bit further later in the video, because there were limitations to that and there was a little obstacle there, and I'm hoping I remember to come back to that. If not, I'm going to be in trouble. But and white knuckling, just not spending and not feeling too good about it either, because during this past almost 8 years that I've been back into fountain pens, I've had not a roller coaster of financial, experience, but there's been very distinct different times where I really had the money to buy fountain pens, where, previous to having ad revenue, I really was on a tight budget and I didn't have ad revenue. So I was really on a budget back then, back in the early days. I started this channel in 2017. So I've had quite a bit of variety of experiences as far as, what my buying power was within the hobby and what my area of interest was too. I think my tastes have maybe gotten a little bit more expensive over the past few years. But what I really want to talk about is some techniques that come from intermittent fasting, and I'll talk about what that is for those of you who don't know, or it's not something that you've heard me talk about in the past, and how it could apply, and how I'm hoping that it will really apply to a 3-month kind of a project that I'm going to be doing from July, August, and September of this year. So I wanted to put it out there. I wanted to let you know what I was doing and just discuss it also because it's been so helpful to me as I've been, writing my journal and getting ready for this and formulating it. And I know we're still in kind of the first third of June as I'm filming this, but I spent all of my pen allowance, if you want to call it that, on that really pretty Benu pen. So I was looking ahead toward, well, how's the rest of my year going to look, in the hobby? And is there anything I want? And typically, what is it in the fall that strikes, and I know there are a couple things and they'll come up. So I think the first thing to do really is to talk about what intermittent fasting is in the diet or health, or however you want to classify it, arena. So intermittent fasting, it's basically where you eat in a timed sort of way. You have an eating window, and that's when you eat. And then you have your window of fasting. And, the experts call this the fasting period and the feasting period. And the feasting part is where you get to eat. And of course there's a lot of decision making that goes into what you're going to eat, but the main element to intermittent fasting is when and how long. What kind of a window are you going to allow yourself? And it gets a little tricky because the experts also say you need to vary this some, or your body will, if you're doing it for weight loss particularly, you will want to vary it some. But I started in August of 2018 with intermittent fasting, and at that time I was in the kind of on the line. Really, I was definitely overweight, and I was probably with 1 foot over into obesity. So just to be totally transparent, I was having a real struggle with my weight, and I had been for many, many years. And the intermittent fasting is the only thing that I've ever found for me that has taken that away. Now, it hasn't perfected everything about my eating or my weight even, but it's put me in the normal weight category, the normal BMI. It's regulated my blood pressure, my blood sugar, and everything else. So it's a powerful tool. So as I was going along not too long ago, and I hope that explains it. It's really just putting structure into when you're going to eat and when you're going to not eat. You're going to fast. And so I think we can really, really apply this to when we are making purchases in the hobby. And I say pens, I was kind of, the whole title and everything is pen buying fast, but I would include everything that relates to the hobby, including ink, including notebooks and other things. But it's a lot easier, especially because right now my current fancy is Benu pens. And so that's been my, whatever you want to call it, the tantalizing shiny object of the moment. But not that long ago it was Opus 88s, and there's been other moments and different things that caught my eye in the hobby. So whatever it is that you're currently wanting to expand your hobby with, you can think of it that way. So anyway, I'm just wanting to share with you my thought processes, because what I heard was someone said, I'm on I think they said a buying hold until this such and such pen show. And I thought, oh, how neat. That was a different way of putting it. I mean, I have watched all kinds of content about no buys and low buys, and I think we all have, and nothing wrong with that at all. I think there's a lot of demand resistance that comes in to that for me when I tell myself I am going to have a no buy. Sometimes it's a no-brainer and there's no way that I can spend any money on the hobby, but that's beside the point. So what I'm going to really be talking about are three principles from intermittent fasting, and then I'm hoping to flip around and discuss them as I think they apply to the pen hobby and our making purchases. So the first one is called, oh dear, I should have got her. I don't have the copy of the book. I gave the book away. But this is actually the title of a book as well as a principle in intermittent fasting. And the principle is delay, don't deny. In other words, we're not ever really saying you can't have this and you can't have that. It's more of a having yourself wait, until you're in your eating window, whatever that might be. And for me, I haven't done extreme fasting. I've done intermittent fasting up to 22 hours, but 20 hours is my general, that's my, if you have a minimum maximum, I wouldn't go less than 20 hours before, and then I'd open my eating window. I wouldn't feel even comfortable if I ate before that, with very, very few exceptions. But okay, so this principle of delay, don't deny, you tell yourself, of course I'm going to eat again, but I'm not going to eat again today, or whatever period it is that you've set up for yourself. And so it really does help, because you're reminding yourself that you will eat again. and I know it's different if we're talking about eating food, taking in calories, or we're talking about, acquiring another pen or another notebook or whatever. But I do truly think that these principles can translate. Is that the translate? Oh, what's that? Anyway, my words get mixed up when I get pretty excited about something. So I do have a lot of notes, because I know that without them, and this is front and back, folks. So you may want to get your coffee or your tea or whatever, if that's in your your plan. Okay, so it's the same thing in terms of if I put up a period of if I create a pen buying fast, then I'm going to be able to tell myself, look, we're not doing this month, but looking ahead, here's when this window is going to open up for you again. And so there you have it. So that's the first one. And then we're going to, on the other side of the paper, there's some very real pitfalls, and we're going to talk about those too, because I don't have the experience that some of my colleagues and fellow YouTubers have for a number of years or anything, but I've been around the block a few times now, and I've been around the block with things other than this hobby. So I know what it was like with books. I know what it's like with purses. There's been a few things where I had to regulate myself. So anyway, the second one of the three is having a buying window, or a purposeful schedule of eating and of not eating. So basically, it's a schedule, and you create it, and it's not going to be the same for any two people, not even a regular intermittent fasting. Through that buying up there, because I don't want to forget to talk about it. But in terms of the intermittent fasting part of it, you do create a schedule. You have a very set plan for yourself on when you're going to eat and when you're not going to eat. And your plan also has to take into account special occasions, but I really want to talk about that on the other side, because that's one of the pitfalls. But so I believe we can definitely do this with hobby spending. We can have a buying window, or we can say, it's going to take us beyond the idea of, do I have the money to get this item? It's going to make it an additional layer and a better way if we can create a schedule, a buying schedule or a set of rules. So, and I did jot down pen show, ink vent, but I really want to talk about that on the other part. Okay, so then the third principle is where we recognize that when we're fasting, when we have we tell ourselves, we're going to delay, but we're not going to totally deny ourselves foods that we really want to eat. And then we have our purposeful schedule. That's the heart of intermittent fasting. And then number 3, we're going to focus on quality for ourselves, because if you're only going to eat in a 4-hour window, or whatever it might be a 6-hour, it might be what they call an OMAD, a 1 meal per day. And it's funny, because I thought, a 1 meal per day is kind of like, some people I've heard talk about buying 1 or 2 fountain pens per year. And so it's a very smaller little thing, but wouldn't you be very purposeful if you were limiting yourself? If you were creating a self-created limit, then you would be, I think, a lot more purposeful. I know I am with my eating, because what am I going to do? Am I going to do all that work for, bringing my glucose down and my calories, and even liking what I see on the scale, and then hitting my eating window? I'm not going to go and eat donuts, that's for sure, because that's not going to make my body feel good. That's not going to be something that's going to be a good choice, And so we come to learn that. If we don't learn it through the brain power, we learn it through how our body feels. So anyway, and I think a lot of us have learned with our pen buying how our overall feeling of well-being and financially feels if we go nuts. And I think a few of us know what that's like, to go nuts. So we might be looking at a more deliberate choice if we put that layer of limitation, and limitation it might not be the right word, but if we're making a real structure come into our hobby and pen buying, and maybe it's just a natural, I've got to mature my pen hobby. I want it to be more sensible. I don't want to have my 40th of the same pen model with the same type of nib, really. No, with very rare exceptions, and I'm looking at you, Twisby, because I know you could probably move my needle on that. But okay, so with those 3 principles in mind, we'll flip over the page, and there are some very real obstacles that we find in intermittent fasting that I'm sure we're going to find in any kind of a pen fast. Okay, and the first one right off the bat is holidays and special occasions. When I started eating this way, it seemed like every darn week, or every month at least, there was a birthday or there was something. And it was like, oh, this is not much fun. I don't even think that way anymore. It's automatic. I know my strategies. I know that I may for one thing, when I started, I could barely fast for 16 hours, and then I would be shaky, and I wasn't metabolically stable at that point. But now, if I knew that I was going to go to some sort of social thing or party or whatever, I know many strategies I can use where I'm not going to arrive there starving to death and reaching for the first thing, or not really feeling well. So I've got all those strategies. And in fact, the two most recent times that there were things like that were funerals, frankly, because there was going to be a funeral and I don't feel well if I eat before my 20 hours have gone by, but the funeral was going to fall right where, that's just not going to happen. And so strategies that I built in would help that. And I remember too that there was eating involved. There was, and it's a very important social occasion, even though social may not be the right word, but yes, you have families together, you're all wanting to be part of it, and you can make any choice you want. But okay, so now we're going to talk about, well, how does that relate to the pen world? Well, what about the pen shows? Now, I don't go to pen shows yet. I haven't never been to one yet, but there's the pen show. There's also the limited or special releases that come out. And we kind of know. We know in some cases ahead of time. And for a long time there, I was really watching the TWSBI Ecos. And that was something that I was really aware of and trying to make sure that I didn't get myself in a position where, I couldn't purchase one if I wanted one. And Inkvent is another one where I know every year when that's going to be. And I want that option, So it behooves me to watch what I'm doing with my money before that point, because I have other built-in rules too. Excuse me. I just will not put it on a credit card unless I can see the money that's going to be used to pay that within that cycle, because I don't want to go down that road again. I've been there. So we can kind of see how there's obstacles like that. Okay, the second major obstacle, little department here would be, I wrote down peer pressure or other people eating. Well, I run into that every day here in this house because Manuel's food smells really good and he eats quite a bit earlier than I do. And that can be kind of a, hopefully I have gotten my nutrition right and gotten my, I'm down there with my good fasting at the end of my window, or else it's going to be kind of hard when I see and smell his food. And it's like, maybe I don't even want to eat what he's eating, but I can smell those onions. I can, it's kind of hard. So what's the equivalent in the pen hobby? Well, to me, that would be Instagram and YouTube and, social media, seeing other people's wonderful pen purchases. But I do feel like if I've got my eye on what I'm doing and I'm focused and I'm not quite as willy-nilly, I guess you'd call it, or if I've set up some structure, which, I'm talking about this as if I've already done it. Well, mostly I've done it out of necessity, but we'll see how I do on this 3-month experiment, and I will let you know. I'll be watching myself. So, okay, the third possible obstacle that I wrote down is fatigue and boredom and need to vary your schedule. Yeah, well, this happens when you're on intermittent fasting, and it's a real thing that you'll want to have some flexibility. It's, it's a metabolic thing that if you, let's just say I did 20-hour fast, 7 days a week and a 4-hour eating window, but really I'm just aiming for that one main meal and I'm just keeping it within that time. Now I know I'm probably losing some people because it's just so far out there, but metabolically, you need to change it up sometimes. Even the athletes and the people that are truly burning their sugars down have to go ahead and do some carb loading, and I don't know much about that. But I do know that you don't need to be rigid and inflexible. However, I'm not too good at that. I like to set things up and have them go pretty smoothly without me having to think, and that has been the key for me, is that once I got something that would work for me, I would much rather deal with, bringing the carbs down to help myself better, or increasing them again. If like when I had my hair fall out and I lost too much weight, I had to increase. So it's not just one way. It's not just always trying to eat less or, bring things down. And I think that would be the same with spending. I mean, it's going to be different at different times. So let's move over to that side. So I think that we get into habits and we get into patterns that we've had, for a long time in the hobby. Like for me, for a while there, I was not buying every single TWSBI Eco. I couldn't look you in the face and say that I could afford every single TWSBI Eco that comes out. I couldn't. But I was really, really like loose with that, until finally I looked and realized I filled a 24 pen case with TWSBI Ecos, and I have quite a few that are neutral color, enough like clear, rose gold and black, rose gold and white. I don't need to be doing that, And, and Lamy Safari's really got to me too. And the ink vent, because I really have to question myself, do you want the ink vent this year? And this is real. I don't know yet whether I'll decide to purchase it or not. It's a really hard thing for me to not get, because I love ink so much. And yet I kind of know myself, and I know that I'm overloaded with ink. And so I love the idea that I will, going into ink vent, because that's July, August, and September, that I will be on a pen buying fast. I don't want to call it a no buy. I don't like that. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. So I will have that option, and I will be able to show myself, okay, do you want this or this? Or shall we save for something greater? Or is there even something outside of the hobby that is more pressing, for the cats or for the house or for whatever else? I really think that it's going to give me more, and anyone who chooses to join me in this, I don't know if I could say more control, more freedom, and more, control. I think I think it would be silly to dismiss that part of it, because if I succeed in this and can create sort of an intermittent fasting lifestyle with my pen hobby purchases, then I do believe that I will be more in control, and I'll be happier with whatever I do or don't acquire, and add to what I have. And it's so funny, because if you look at nutrition and you look at how, especially when you're doing like a one meal, and this is something I have done quite often actually, is and it's really challenging, to get enough protein, enough vegetables, excuse me, and everything that you really kind of need within a shorter time frame. But it helps so much metabolically. But okay, so now I'm going to probably lose my train of thought. I knew I would. It's just so important to, oh, picture message. I'm seeing something coming through. I get distracted real easily. Hold on just a second. Okay, so in this realm, I think nutrition is kind of comparative to, and just allow me this wild, stretch of the imagination. If I'm over here and I'm trying to buy my 25th TWSBI, and I don't have, A5 size writing paper for my pen pal writing, then I have a problem. Same thing as I have if I'm over here fasting and I'm not getting enough protein, or I'm not getting enough potassium, or whatever else it is. It teaches you that there's more than one important thing. And so I do truly believe, and either that or I'm just, my brain has gone completely wonky, and maybe you just tell me, I guess. But I feel that I'm onto something for myself anyway, that I can use, transfer these skills. I think that's what they used to call it. My boss in the Air Force said, you're going to have a lot of transferable skills when you get done here. So, and it's true. It's true of anything, but definitely for this. Okay, so that's the structure part. That's everything that I kind of wrote down. And so now I think, now I can kind of ramble a little as if that wasn't already a 25-minute ramble. But I wrote down some little things on the side that I, who knows what I meant at the time. Oh, this is an important one though. This is something worth waiting around for. Okay, so, excuse me. Every time I start a video, it's like some people sneeze, well, I cough. Over the past almost 8 years, there's only been 2 pens that I missed out on that I regret now. And I'll tell you about them. Okay, the first one is the Twisby Draco, and that was 100% my fault. Like, it was, I guess, a limited release, but it was a slow, it didn't sell out immediately, not everywhere. And so I had revisited that a couple different times. And I thought, especially after I saw a Wasky Squirrel with his broad nib one. I think he got a broad nib on his. Maybe I'm mistaken, but in my mind, I was thinking broad nib. Oh yeah, that'd be, and it's a piston filler, but my talking myself out of that pen had to do with it being a piston filler, but not a demonstrator. But I have regret over that pen. And then there's only one other one in all these years. And that is, it was a pink Bennu pen, but I don't remember the name. It was something, it had hearts, and some people called it the Pepto-Bismol one because it was a talisman, and it was pink, and it had the sparklies, but it was very limited edition. If I'm not mistaken, it was a little higher cost than the others, but you can't quote me because I don't remember. I just remember thinking, I don't have the money, and it's sold out. And I was really not bitter, because it's just a pen. It's a pink pen, right? And there'll be another one later. But I didn't even have a Bennu at the time. And that was the first one I saw where I thought, oh yeah, I like that. It's pink, And then later on, I became very happy when I was able to purchase my Bennu Talisman Mandrake, which has some like magenta and pink and teal in it, and it strikes a lot of the boxes. But that's only 2 fountain pens in all of those years. So I'm thinking, so what could possibly happen in 3 months then? This is an experiment I want to do, and I'm going to give it my best. If there's money in the pen allowance account, which is a separate account where the Google ad money goes, then it'll be my funeral if I spend it before that 3 months is out and I don't get to see what it's like to let it accumulate and have that deliberation time of being in a fasting period, a pen buying fast. And I know how good it feels to be in a eating fast. I know it didn't feel that way in the beginning. It was ridiculous, but I didn't feel like I had an option. I felt at the time in 2018 that my only other option was checking myself into the doctor and getting on medications. So, I was having trouble keeping my blood sugar down, and I was having all kinds of problems. Even my blood pressure was wonky then, and I haven't had a single problem with that since I started with intermittent fasting. But anyway, that's a whole separate subject. Just that I've managed to twist it into this video real good. But I know what it feels like to have that peace, on the tail end of the fast and everything, and just feels really, really good. So I'm hoping that that's the same kind of a thing that I'll find with this. And I feel like it'll be similar, like the beginning, the start of this, with a nearly empty pen account, it's, not much fun, right? But the longer I do it, the more flexibility that I'll have. And I feel like that's the way it is with the intermittent fasting too. If I ever now had to walk right out the door because something was happening and I couldn't eat for a long period of time, I'd be just super fine. I'd be better off than I would be in the middle of a eating day or whatever you want to call it. Because, I know how it feels. I know how it works. I understand that my body eventually shifts over to fat burning. It takes some time and you don't want to mess that up by restarting the little clock with, a handful of whatever calories. So Okay, so maybe that will prove to be similar with pen buying, like that, and hobby purchases in general. And that's why I wanted to share this with you, because if nothing else, this will be something to either laugh over or to say, oh yeah, in 3 months I'd like to see, what happened. So when will we come back? Well, I talk to you every month, so you'll hear little bits at the end of every one of my progress reports. So it won't be long, and I'm thinking July, August, September. Oh, September 7th is the channel anniversary. That's when we hit 7 full years and we start our 8th year here on YouTube. So if, God willing and the cell phone works, that kind of thing. So I will definitely talk about this again. It won't be the only time, because I'll do an after action. I'll let you know. How did it go? I let you know the other day when I spent the entire Google ad money that I earned for March and April that I got in May on the beautiful pink champagne from Gold Spot. So let's see if I can do the opposite now. Let's see if I can go ahead and experience a pen fast and see what it's like. And hopefully, if you were looking for any kind of a tool or thoughts or a different way of approaching your pen spending, hopefully this video has helped you even just a little bit, and that'll make the whole thing worth it. I was excited, real excited to come on here and share about this with you. Even though it's at the beginning of the experiment, I've been toying with the idea for a couple of weeks, and I've also been thinking about it even longer than that, but I just couldn't quite make it make sense until I heard that other person say something about a spending hold, and I liked the way it was said so well. It was so mature. It was so adult. A spending hold, because they were going to a pen show. And for me, like, the fall is a really exciting time in this hobby. So if anybody were to save up some pen allowance or practice, less non-intentional buying, this would be the time. Because if you're able to squirrel away some for the previous to the Black Friday or whatever you want to call it, or some of the sales that come, the really good ones do seem to come in that last quarter of the year in our hobby. In fact, that's when I bought my Lamy 2000. Didn't pay the retail on that. So it was wonderful. I can't remember exactly how much I spent, but it was a big chunk lower, and it was wonderful. I think, didn't I get that from Pen Chalet? I don't know. But I shop around quite a bit. So, okay, I'm going to end the video now because I think it's on a high note. I want to hear in the comments what you think of this. And then, going forward, shoot me an email or a comment on any video. I'd love to have this be a conversation to see, does this translate? Is it just me? Is it the Texas heat, or does this make actual sense? I think it actually makes sense. And I'll let you know how it goes. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.